Hello, everybody. Global warming skeptic here, and we're going to take a break from TYT and making fun of their ignorance of the U.S. Constitution. And let me adjust this. We're going to be picking on Kyle for a second. Now, let's play the video and hear what Kyle has to say because there is a lot to cover here.
You saw during the Democratic debates that Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders were really hesitant to call Donald Trump a racist. And I think that's birthed out of people fearing like that term is overused, which it very well may be, or people fearing.
Now, see, that alludes to the fact that Kyle Kulinski understands that there is definitely an overuse of this term. Definitely. Because the original meaning of the word racist meant that you were by far superior and you looked down upon people of another race. It was meant to describe hatred, bigotry, and supremacy. But that term has been ridiculously watered down, and you're going to see as soon as I play this that Kyle Kulinski is going to continue to struggle with his it maybes and well this, well that. Just listen to him.
That if you slap that label on somebody, that you are immediately lumping them in with, for example, the KKK, or with, Bull Connor and the most notorious racist of all time. But there are different grades and different levels and different shades of racist. You don't need to be an Alabama sheriff sicking the dogs on black kids in order to be a racist. You could just be an old bigot who casually believes, hey, look, are we better genetically, inherently? I guess so. I don't hate black people. I have black friends, but come on, keep it real. We got our shit together.
Now, notice how. Hang on.
They're better. Am I right? So they're
okay. There, that's good enough. Now, notice how he's really doing some mental gymnastics by saying that people who say that black people are disadvantaged are saying that they are genetically inherently better. And yeah, you might have black friends. So notice how he is struggling with the fact that he has conservatives who call into his show, write him, and post comments on his YouTube channel and any other social media he does, Twitter, that there are a lot of conservatives who say, no, you're misrepresenting us. And Kyle understands what he's saying is wrong because he's taking a very weak position on it. And no, that is not what conservatives think. There is not a conservative on this earth that says that we are better inherently, genetically, than other races. Nobody other than extreme racists, who, by the way, are both on the left and on the right side of the political spectrum. So you're just wrong. That is not what conservatives believe. And if you want to learn reasoning, this is a very complicated topic. You ought to talk to a conservative. And I don't think you do a good job of doing that, because you would realize that, no, they are not racists. Sorry. Herman Cain was 100% correct in what he said, that Trump is not a racist. Anyhow, let's go on.
Different varieties of it. And is Donald Trump one shade or another of a bigot? I think that's inarguable. In fact, I don't even know why the people who support him ardently don't just admit it. Like, just admit it. Just admit it. Because if you truly believe those positions, which I think they do, then why do you back away from it when pressed? Why don't you just say, yeah, I'm that, and I'll explain to you why I think that's the right thing to be. I'll explain.
Okay, what positions are we backing away from? What positions? See, here's the thing, Kyle. You're about policy specifics and policy substance, but you are being incredibly vague here. What specifically are you referring to? Well, actually, never mind. You're going to go into it, and it's going to be a straw man argument. Let's listen on.
Explain to you why it makes sense to be a bigot and then defend it. But no, they always get touched. Ooh, I'm not that, even though I'm going to say a million things that imply that I am that, but I'm not that. Ooh.
Again, specifics. Where are these specifics?
Can't catch me. You can't catch me. No, but see, we all see through you. When you, for example, when Donald Trump launched his campaign, what did he say? He said, "Oh, the Mexicans, they're coming over here. They're criminals. They're rapists. I assume some are good people." Okay.
Now, hang on. Did he do his quote fingers? Hang on. Let's
His
see.
campaign, what did he say? He said, "Oh, the Mexicans, they're coming over here. They're criminals. They're rapists. I assume some are good people."
Okay. Donald Trump never said those specific words. Go back and listen to his introduction speech for becoming president. He says, quote, when Mexico sends their people, they're not sending their best. What does that imply? Does that say when Mexicans send everybody, they're not sending their best? What does their best mean? Think about those two words. Take those two words and apply them to a group of everything. If I say that the best students are not going to college, does that say that there are no students going to college? And number two, Mexican as an example of racism? Kyle, do you realize that there are black Mexicans? There are Asian descent Mexicans. And if you want to take it to Hispanic, it's the same thing. There are black Hispanics, there are white Hispanics, there are all numbers of different Hispanics. That is why, specifically, Hispanic, in most statistical measures, is not a race. It is an ethnicity. Ethnicities can contain many different races, but they all have the same ancestry. Black people have been settling Jamaica for like 700 years or whatever. 700 years. That pretty much makes that an ethnicity. People of Spanish ancestry who settled the Caribbean, Central, and South America. That is Hispanic. That's not a race. Most of them are white, and there are a few of them who are black. So, you need to get your terms squared away, Kyle, because you do not understand race or ethnicity or nationality for that matter. Because Mexican isn't even an ethnicity, it's a nationality. So I don't get where you're saying that. And again, the two key words, they're not sending, quote, their best. What Trump is implying here is that illegal aliens who are, through the neglect of Mexico to enforce border security, coming over to our country illegally, that's not the best that Mexico has to offer. That's the scum of Mexico. And yes, some may be good people. and that is specifically what Trump said, but most of them, a great deal of them, are in gangs or they add to urban squalor. And for you to make this a race issue, it just shows how little liberals know. Let's listen on and see if there's anything else.
Okay, no, see, you flipped it. That is a racist thing to say. That is a bigoted thing to say. If he said, okay, no, see, you flipped it. That is a racist thing to say. That is a bigoted thing to say. Okay, no, see, you flipped it. That is a racist thing to say. That is a bigoted thing to say. If he said the opposite, I
Just for clarity, I just wanted to repeat that for you guys.
would honestly defend him. If he said, look, they're mostly good people, but some are criminals and rapists.
How aren't we defending him? It's not racist to defend a non-racist statement.
Well, that's a different thing, and of course that's true. That's true of every different group, and you could even argue about the difference in statistics, okay? But when you flip it like that and say, I assume some are good people, implying the majority are a problem and are bad people or are criminals and rapists, well, no, then that is a bigoted thing to say. When you say, I'm going to ban all Muslims from entering the country, you don't think that's bigoted? Come on now. Now, that's not racist.
How's that bigoted? For one thing, he's saying from entering the country. He said nothing about those who are here right now. And as far as the Muslim issue, that's not a race. That is not an ethnicity. That is not a nationality. Islam is a political ideology, which includes the religion of Islam. But Islam is not just a religion. And so when people state that they are against the political ideology of Islam, considering what is in the Quran, yeah, I'd say that's a pretty reasonable position to take. It does not mean you hate all Muslims, but you have to understand, just like people who study witchcraft, if there is somebody who takes this into public practice, yeah, you're going to be suspicious of some of their actions. But there is nothing wrong with that, because it is the actions and the behavior that matter. It's not the person, it's the ideology. Let's move on.
Because Islam isn't a race, religion isn't a race, but it is bigoted, it is xenophobia, it is fear of the...
Okay, xenophobia, for one thing. You use that word wrong. Xenophobia is a fear, an irrational fear of foreigners, of anything foreign. This is not an irrational fear, number one. Number two, this is not a fear of anything foreign. For example, do you see Trump complaining about European immigrants to the United States, foreign exchange students, anything such as that? Do you see Trump strongly complaining about Asian immigration, about South African immigration from Ghana, for example, which isn't South Africa, but it's not being complained about by Trump. Trump's problems with immigration are focused on specific problem groups, and they are not irrational fears. So, Kyle, I really hate to say this, but it would be simple for you just to pull out a dictionary, look up the definition of xenophobia, and then come back with a new perspective on how that is another one of those words that liberals have perverted and twisted.
other, it is saying all Muslims should be lumped in with the worst elements. So of course he is. He has
Yeah, because all Muslims believe in the words of the Quran. So Kyle here likes to say that there are good Muslims and there are bad Muslims. I agree with him. I think anybody would agree. I'd say even Trump would agree. But there's a problem. Which of these good sects of Muslims do not go by the Holy Quran? That's the problem. Because when you have a book that says hateful things, yes, you can say, okay, well, the non-violent versions of Muslims will interpret that to mean something wildly different, despite the fact that the Quran is direct and clear. It is not indirect. It is a tightly focused short message of conquest, of conversion, and violence against infidels. You kill all infidels. That's in the Quran. And so when you have softer versions of Muslims who follow that, that leaves a clear and present danger of those people becoming radicalized by other sects of Muslims. Just because somebody is a Sufi Muslim now does not mean they will not become a Sunni later in life because of some kind of enlightenment they received, and it is not that far of a jump for that kind of radicalization to happen. In fact, we have seen it happen. Now, let's move on.
floated the idea. He bragged about this thing in the past called Operation Wetback, where they rounded up people and shipped them out of the fucking country. He wants to round up over 10 million undocumented immigrants and ship them out of the country. That's fucking insane.
How's that insane? How is that insane to round up people who came into this country illegally? We don't have an open border with Mexico, Kyle. It's not open. So, here's the thing, and this is where you're talking out of both sides of your mouth at times, Kyle. You say you want higher border security, but you want no repercussions for those who come in illegally. Yet, that is what is going to decrease border security. And yes, while illegal immigration may be down, it's impossible to tell because it only refers to illegals who are willing to admit to being illegal, which we don't know what percentage that is, and we have no way of knowing. But even taking that at face value, what if Mexico's economy starts tanking again? They're going to be right back up over here because, according to your logic, if they can get past the 100 miles of the southern border that they would need to get past to become relatively safe from ICE, then they're home free. All they have to do is wait for some president in the future to declare amnesty, and they're home free. That's not a good policy for border security, Kyle. It hurts those here legally. Like, okay, we have to account for these illegal aliens. Like, even though we don't know exactly how many there are, we have to try and keep track. And you know who that hurts? That hurts the average Mexico, the average Mexican who wants to come here legally. Because their spot's taken by some kid in MS-13 who crossed the border, went to Houston, went to San Diego, went to any of these cities filled with these gangs, and joined their ranks. I'm sorry, Kyle, but the reality is We need people who are going to produce for the United States. These immigrants, they're not coming here out of our charity, out of our loving hearts. The immigrants are coming to help our economy. They're coming to provide the jobs as if they need to be filled by foreigners, they can come here. I'm fine with that as long as it's a legal process. Because when it's legal, we can vet them, we can screen them, we can select the ones that are going to be productive members of our society, even if it's just seasonal work. That's just the reality. Yes, they have to go home. And think about this. What if this were another country and an American going there, such as Iran, such as Mexico, where there are people in prison for just crossing the border, much less going deep into the country? Just crossing the border can get you months or years in jail. Sorry, but it's not a sensible position, Kyle. They have to go back.
Yes, that's a bigoted position. Of course, that's a bigoted position. And is in his mind's eye, does he have?
And once again, and just here's another thing. This whole bigoted thing, like anytime you disagree, a position. First of all, Kyle, a position is not bigoted. A position has no emotions. Okay? People have emotions. So, if somebody is rationally arguing our deportation practices, no matter how extreme it sounds to you, just because somebody holds a position does not mean they hold that position because they hate all Mexicans, they hate all Muslims, or they hate all black people, or they hate any of this group. That's not how logic works, Kyle. Do you want to have a rational discussion about policy substance, or do you want to throw around racist, bigot, xenophobe, etc. all the time? Do you expect a rational discussion to come across from that? Is that what you're expecting? Do you want rational discourse or not, Kyle? I can tell you're at least curious, a curious person. But in order to satisfy your curiosity, you have to be seeking rational arguments. If you are going to sit there and just call people names, anybody a name who disagrees with your position, then you're not going to get rational discourse. If you're trying to make somebody's position something it is not, for example, by saying, why don't you just defend that bigoted position you hold, when in reality it has nothing to do with bigotry, just because somebody disagrees with you. And let's just go a little bit deeper into this. Mexicans illegally coming over the border, who does that hurt? What jobs are they taking? They're taking jobs that poor people would otherwise be taking. A lot of jobs, a lot of construction jobs that poor people would have, but immigrants are sought because they can be paid less, they can be paid under the table, and they can have their potential status as a deterrent for doing anything wrong. This is why companies love to hire foreigners and why they actively seek out foreigners, legal and illegal foreigners. Who does that hurt? Who's poor in this country? That's right. The black people are one of the poorest demographics in this country. So, if you want to talk about bigotry based on disproportionately negative impacts, look at your position. Your position with Muslims, where you say we should have allies that execute homosexuals. Who does that disproportionately impact? I'm not going to go down to your level, Kyle, and say that you're a bigot, you're LGBT, or LGBTQ, whatever you kids want to call it nowadays. But I'm not going to go down to your level and say that, because I want a rational argument. I want a rational discussion on the issues, and you cannot have that if you're just going to sit there and name call, throw straw man arguments out there, and try to force people to take positions that they do not take. It's wrong, Kyle, and if you are as curious as I think you are, you need to stop it. Because if you want to be a standard bearer of logic, you have to lead the way. You have to lead the way for your listeners, for hell, even the Young Turks, which I'm sure keeps up with your channel, because it's big enough. You have to be the one that is logical. And if you're curious, you'll do that. That just means take more consideration, be more considerate for people who disagree with you, and stop calling names. If you're a reasonable person, I think that you'll do that once you understand that it's not going anywhere. Let's move on.
People in the country who are German immigrants, when he pictures us rounding people up and shipping them out, knocking on their door in the middle of the night and dragging them out of their houses, is it Swedish immigrants that he's thinking of? No, come on now. You know they're all a certain skin tone, aren't they? Aren't they? So
Oh, really? Really, 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 really? So, what about the Cubans? What about Dominicans? What about legal Mexican immigrants? Do you think that ICE is just going there saying, he's got brown skin, he's out? Is that the way you think this is going, Kyle? And yes, just so you know, Kyle, there are Asian immigrants who ICE goes after also. Human trafficking is a huge part of places like Thailand, like China. They smuggle them into. You seen those huge shipping barges with the 20 stacks of huge crates? There are people stuffed in those, along with the goods. And they got to sneak out of port, and then that's where they find the lives for themselves. It's not just people flooding over the border that ICE goes after, Kyle. It's a huge percentage, but it's not all one skin color. Nor is everybody of a skin color searched. So again, Kyle, I plead with you, please, stop trying to twist the facts to fit your narrative. Please. Because like I said, you're better than this. And you know you're better than this. So please, once again,
I don't know why they try to hide it. Just say it. If you believe it, just say it and then defend it. But no, we're not bigoted, even though, yeah, most of these dark-skinned people are criminals and bad, and we should ban all Muslims. But I'm not bigoted. No, just say it. Come out and say it.
And again, just reinforcing my previous point of trying to force people to take a position that they never took. We're not going to tell you a lie, Kyle. But what we will tell you, if you're willing to listen, is the rationale, and you don't have to agree with our rationale. I'm not asking you to say, yes, I've heard what you have to say, your position's more rational. No. I fully expect you to keep your position. But here's what I want from you, Kyle, and any progressive. Understand that when we talk about something, whether or not you agree with our rationale, it is not based on racial hatred. It's not based on us thinking other people are inferior. It's based on nuance that you refuse to listen to. And in your absence of knowledge, you insert these other names for conservatives in their positions for whatever reason. I don't know if it's to verify your own arguments or to discredit theirs, but either way, you've done nothing. You have done nothing but infuriate people. And what do people do when they're infuriated? They turn the lights off to anything you have to say. Because if you're interested in rational discussion, you're going to open up some minds, Kyle. You will open up a lot of conservative minds. But if you're going to sling the mud, people are going to turn off their minds and pick up their battle axes. And they're going to want to character assassinate you, liberalism, progressivism, and anything you stand for. Just think of it this way too, Kyle. Part of the reason Bernie Sanders lost is exactly because of that. Because rather than having rational discussion, you name call and you turn people off to your message when you use such filthy terms to refer to modest people. And yes, there are racists out there. There are real racists out there. But there's not many. Even the people who use a cynical tone to refer to black people are not racist. They are angry and bitter at a system that has not helped them, but it hasn't helped anybody. But anyhow, here's the take home I want to get. There's only 10 seconds left in the video. I don't think you're going to get much more, but let's listen to the rest of it.
Instead of having Herman Cain go out there and go, shuck it ducking now, massa. You want me to do a jig for you? I can do a jig for you. Here's my jig. Here's my jig.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty much nothing. Basically, what he's saying there is that it's the same thing liberals always say. Anytime a black person comes and says conservatives are not racist, what's the liberal response? He's an Uncle Tom. He's paid to say those things. He doesn't really mean it. What kind of a person would accuse somebody of that? Yeah, there's people who get influenced by money, heavily influenced. But when it comes to someone's race, it's like, number one, if somebody were truly racist, they wouldn't have a black person on their show or up on the podium saying those things, because they wouldn't feel like they need it. They would feel like it's just a stain on themselves. They would feel that it's a massive stain to have a black person come up there. And number two, why would a black person who thought that somebody was racist do any kind of favor for anybody who they feel like is racist? It doesn't make any sense. But anyhow, here's the take home message from all this. If you want, if you're truly interested in the policy substance that you say you're interested in, Kyle, if you're really interested and you're really intellectually curious, if you truly want to expand your mind, if you want to expand the minds of others, you need to back up, take a more rational position, and stop calling everybody who disagrees with you racist, sexist, bigoted, xenophobic, whatever, homophobic, whatever new terms liberals want to come up with. Because if you don't do that, you're never going to get the rationality you want. And if the result happens that you don't want, as it partially already has, then if you're rational, you won't have to pound your desk and say, why did they not listen to me? Why did my message not get across? And because I can already tell you why. It's because you didn't listen. Thanks for listening. God bless, guys.